Okay, well, I'm going to get this thing started. Let me just do a couple of logistics and then I'll introduce myself. You're welcome to keep your video and audio off. If you'd like to ask a question during the presentation, I will have a couple of stopping points. You're welcome to wait or let me know while we're going. And there will be an opportunity at the end also to answer questions. I really want to thank you all for taking your time. I know you're all very busy, and given that we've all moved to the remote locations to work, I wanted to make sure that everybody is familiar with the risks that might be at play working from home. So this is an important subject. It's important that you come away with this with value for yourself, especially at your home with your families, and also being able to share what you find out today with your business. There's a lot of material that we'll be going over today, and I will be providing you at the end. We'll be emailing it probably later today or tomorrow. You'll get a complete list of everything that I discussed. The presentation in itself, it doesn't include everything. So what you'll get is a complete resource that has a checklist of all the items we're discussing today with links, with resources. So it'll really help you kind of refresh what you've taken away from today's session. And so with that, let me go ahead and spend some time and introduce myself. I did decide to turn the video off. I tried the video on this morning and I was a little choppy in my presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and just be with audio only. And if anybody doesn't see me change my screen to myself, you should see me now on the screen. Just someone chime in and let me know if that didn't happen. But I am Randy Heischiver. I've been with Echo for about 5.5 years. I've been in the industry, in the IT industry for over 30 years. I've taken on a lot of different roles, primarily in the area of project management and client management. I've got a lot of background in analytics and data integration and business and process improvement. And I work very much in the IT managed service department group at Echo as a sales consultant as my current role. A little bit about Echo. Let me change the screen here. So Echo, and this is going to be for a lot of you that don't know Echo and you don't know me. Echo is a full service IT consulting firm. We're also known as a managed service provider. And we work as an IT outsourcing solution for our clients to help them achieve their business goals through technology. We provide strategic planning, managed services, service desk, server and workstation support. We do project management, help with a lot of different projects that are needed with technology. We offer procurement. And one of our biggest offerings these days is cybersecurity protection, and really helping increase that stack for protecting our clients from the increased threats that are occurring today. We also have another part of our company that specializes in Salesforce consulting and software development. So that's something, if you have an interest, you can reach out to us and we can discuss that at a later time. Our values are really around ensuring that we are a trusted partner for our clients, that we're providing that strategic partnership through transparency, really providing a very collaborative, trusted environment, and working effectively with each other. So those are our core values. I will be providing a little bit of additional information at the end about some of our services. So let me go ahead and jump in here and give you some highlights on the agenda for today. So like I said, there's a lot of materials that we'll be covering. And I've broken it down into many different sections. We'll start off with email protection, a lot of the common things that you might be familiar with when it comes to phishing campaigns or phishing attacks. We'll move into application protection. Then we'll address computer protection and just start drilling down into the network protection. Protection while you're working on your browser on the network. Other risks that might not be as commonly known. Some information about home safety protections. We'll go over some procedures and policies that will help you. And then again, like I said, we'll talk a little bit about our services and how we've been providing some new services that we've launched to help with the home environments. And then we'll give you an opportunity to have Q&A at the end. So let's move into email protection. So a lot of companies have spent a lot of time, and this is probably one of the biggest focuses, and a lot of the material that you'll be receiving today, you might already know. Hopefully you'll learn some new things. And around email protection, there's a lot of scamming going on and what we refer to as phishing scams. And that can be done in many different facets. There's very deceptive emails, targeting specific folks in the organization, coming from a specific person, like an impersonation, tricking you, a lot of trickery and deceptiveness, and really trying to get you to either run off, to transfer to a malicious website, or download a malicious file, or enter credentials or personal information that they can gather on you and your family and your organization. The main thing that you have to be providing here, in addition to whatever software might be helping you protect you, is that it's important that you're paying attention, that you're watching out for these scams, that you're looking at your emails carefully, that you're being cautious about what you're clicking on, that you're not downloading bad attachments, that the person who's sending you the message is really their email address, that the way the formatting of the email, if it looks suspicious, doesn't look like it comes from the typical person that you typically receive, then, you know, be better safe than sorry, and be careful, and don't necessarily have to delete it, but you might want to ask and verify with somebody. But I would be very cautious of that. You're seeing an increase in this. It's coming from Gmail accounts. It's coming from Office accounts. It looks like legitimate emails, and you want to be very cautious. You also want to be paying attention to all the ways that they entice you. It might be free services. It might be some urgency, something that's important. They change something. They want you to update your password. So there's lots of ways they're enticing you. They're trying to get you to do something that is going to ultimately hurt you and your company, and possibly steal data. You always want to verify your sources. You want to know where it's coming from. You might want to double check, you know, especially when you're doing wire transfers. And then you want to check with your IT department or your IT support organization if they're asking for some information about a change. You want to make sure not to click on unknown links. So hover over the link. Make sure that you know the link that it's sending you to. If you don't, and you know that it's asking you to go to a particular site, then you just want to make sure that you go to that site through the bookmark or through the link that you already know yourself. And then it's important to start, if your company has not already implemented it, is to implement a targeted threat protection service like a Mimecast that can actually monitor your traffic, can mask your URLs, can test your attachments before they're sent to you, and can protect you from impersonations and a lot of the scams. I provided down here on the bottom right, and again, it will be on the checklist that we send you, a link to a Google sponsored test that you can go to at your own leisure to see how well you would do with scammy emails, and to see if you can identify them. See if there's anything else I want to say about this. So that's pretty good at this point. And so really the bottom line is just be careful of giving away confidential information, privacy information, credentials, etc. So the next area that I want to talk about is application protection. So this would be, in a lot of cases these days, it's cloud apps. It's a lot of, you know, social networking environments. It's accounting environments, banking, et cetera, et cetera. We're all in the cloud now. We're all entering credentials all day long. So one of the things first for the social networking, I highly recommend you go off to your social networks, your Facebooks, your LinkedIn, and review, and your Google, and review through the settings. Make sure that your privacy settings are the way you want them to be. You're not exposing information. You're not exposing your information to your friends. Your phone number is not exposed, et cetera. So it's a good practice to review through those. When it comes to passwords in getting into your applications, it's very common that people are using one password with one username for all their apps. It's not a good practice. Once one is breached and that list is sold to some bad actor, they can then try to access all the different apps out there with the same credentials. So it's important that you use both a unique password and a complex password for accessing your cloud applications. Down here at the bottom left is just an example of how easy it is to crack a simple password. There's a lot of tools that these bad actors have access to, and they can quickly brute force into your systems. So you want to use a more complex password that has an alphanumeric, uppercase, lowercase, and a symbol with 8 or 10 characters or more. That'll take a long time to crack. In addition to passwords, it's important that you have either yourself or your company implements multi-factor authentication. So a lot of the popular applications in the cloud will have the ability to enable that feature. And that's going to add that second layer of protection, and it's going to really provide the protections from any brute force attack. The other thing that can be used to help you keep unique and complex passwords is to use a password manager. And I'll provide some of that in the email that we send you. So some examples like LastPass. And then when you are on the internet accessing these applications, make sure that you're always in a secure connection when you're entering your credentials or you're entering credit card information, that it's an encrypted connection. And that's going to be important to ensure that you're not allowing some bad actor to capture information from a local connection, spying on your traffic. When you're done with your apps, cloud apps, if they don't have an automatic session log off, I highly recommend you log off of your accounts, and just be cautious of saving credentials and credit cards on computers, especially if they're not your primary computer. And then always get software. So if you have an application you're downloading, like we just mentioned, LastPass, or some software that has been recommended for you to download, make sure you're downloading it from a reliable source. A lot of applications, when you Google them, can come up at a lot of different locations. And if you don't know who they are, you don't know if they've injected some bad code into that application's install or the application itself. So be careful about that. The next section I'd like to speak to is computer protection. So a lot of the folks working at home now are either working on the business issue laptop, which hopefully has a lot more protections that the company has already installed on it. But in many cases, people are working on their home computers, or they're working on, a lender or some loan computer, or you're in the remote field and you're working at the library, or you're working at a friend's house, etc. The thing that's most important is that the computer you're working on has malware protection and antivirus protection. And I think a lot of home computers have been, a little bit less, compliant in that regard. So make sure you install something, ask your employer, maybe they can issue a license that you can install on the computer. It's important that you keep your computers up to date. Again, if you're not on the business computer, it's not necessarily with the same robust practice to update your patch your OS and your third-party softwares to make sure that you don't have any security threats from software that has been exploited. Another thing that's important is if you have laptops that are remote, you want to make sure that the disks are encrypted. If those laptops are stolen, or you leave them at the coffee shop, or for some reason forget them somewhere and they get into the wrong hands, those drives can be pulled right out of those machines and can be accessed. So it's important to have an encryption. Talk to your IT support team for information about how you can get that installed properly. A lot of the attacks, as you probably have heard in the news, are ransomware attacks where they encrypt files. And those files that are encrypted requiring you to pay a ransom in order to get the key to open those files again. If you have good backups of your files, you're going to be able to recover from a period in time before the ransom attack occurred. Now, a lot of folks are using cloud file systems, so you just want to make sure that you understand the retentions, the backups, the version controls of those files that are being stored in the cloud on like a OneDrive, a SharePoint, Dropbox, Google Drive, etc. If you're saving files on your local machines, then it's important that you implement a backup service. Another thing that's common is, I don't know if it's considered common, but it's another threat that could happen is these USB drives or these little thumb drives. Depending on who you get them from, if you don't know where they're coming from, it's an easy way to embed malware or malicious code that when you put them into your computer can infect your computer. So be cautious of where you're getting those from and make sure they're reliable. If you're going to sell your computer or you're going to retire it and you had a lot of confidential information sitting on that drive, I would go ahead and have it wiped. And there's multiple ways of there's some really robust ways of wiping drives that are more protected than just the factory reset of a computer. So that would be important. And then I would put a screensaver on your computer so that when you walk away from your computer and with a timer to log off or to log out or to lock, to lock, then nobody who that shouldn't be on your computer can get in there quickly, especially if you're in a space where there's a lot of public activity. And if you have your computer sitting on your desk and you're on the first floor and your windows open a lot, I would consider it a padlock and lock your computer of some sort of locking system to your desk. For those who are, working on wanting to enforce certain policies on these workstations, like you want your workforce to require antivirus running on your computer before you access the corporate resources, then you should look at implementing a mobile device management product like Intune at Microsoft that has the ability to apply policies like that would not let somebody log into the Office portal without a machine that has AV running. So we're going to start seeing more of these tools that will help enforce the workforce in following compliances and requirements before they actually are able to access the resources. So I'm going to go ahead and pause for a minute, or not a minute, but for a few seconds to see if anybody has any questions or comments, or if I'm not coming across clearly, and then I'll move on. See if anybody's chatting. Okay, no chats. Okay, very good. So let's move on to the next section. So network protection. So most people who have been working in the office for most of their work have been protected by the firewalls at the office. A lot more infrastructure is in play to ensure that your environment is protected in the office. Now that we're at the home, it's not necessarily protected as well. There's some basics that are probably in play, and you want to confirm some of the best practices that your network should have at home. So if your internet is set up with just a Comcast, kind of a Comcast modem, and that's it from the ISP that you're signed up with, then you want to make sure that that modem is set up with a, is configured with a good strong password to get into it. So you might want to change that if it hasn't been changed since you had it installed. You want to have possibly set up a guest and internal network to connect to that. You want to make sure the Wi-Fi is secure. In most cases, when you have like a Comcast, they're out of the box that way, but you want to make sure if you're using something you bought at Best Buy's or some other device that somebody gave you that's running in the house, you want to make sure it's secured, that the Wi-Fi is set up with a secured protocol. It is a good practice to establish the two networks so that when vendors walk into the home, or you have some family member or somebody that's not part of your family necessarily, you want them to connect with the guest network, and then you want to have the family on the home network. The bottom left here is just an example of starting to layer the network so that you have your Comcast possibly here, and then you have another third-party router that you put here, and the family connects through that Wi-Fi versus the one at the front door near the that has been provided by the ISP, and then you can have the guest connect directly to that. You want to make sure that you know, some of the things that could be turned on when you get these routers or these modems from the factory directly is they have the remote access enabled. You can go in there and turn those off. It's not necessarily required. And then I would also start to consider implementing a VPN for online privacy. So a lot of typical VPNs that people are familiar with is connecting to the office. You work at home, you connect to the VPN, and then you can access the files on the server in the office. I'm not referring to that type of VPN. I'm referring to a VPN that's more for your browsing and your access to your cloud apps, so that you are providing a layer of encryption and protection as your traffic is going back and forth between you and your application. So this is something you'll get in the email from us with a recommendation that you implement a VPN. And this is going to be good, especially if you go on public networks that are like at a hotel or an airport or a cafe. And then if you have young folks at home and kids that are, you know, on the internet a lot, a lot of these modems, these routers that you buy for your internet access have built into them parent controls. So you might want to log into them and see what kind of parent controls you could enable if that's something that you have some concerns about. Let's see if there's anything else on network for me. No, that's good. So I'll move on to internet protection. So when you're on the internet, so this will be, you know, that you're in the email, you click, now you're in the internet through your browser, you're browsing around, and you end up on a website. So if you go to the website through your bookmarks, you're most likely going to be safe. But if you went to a website through an email or through some link that you found somewhere else, you want to be cautious about, you know, that is it the legitimate site, especially if you're going to enter credentials, or you're going to enter credit card information or private information. Look at the URL, make sure it's spelled correctly. A lot of times they try to change the name to make it look similar. They might use an O instead of an A 1 instead of an I, etc. And they'll make the site look just like the site you're used to going to. Be careful of warnings popping up on your computer. They're made to look like they're legit. They want you to install software. They want to make you feel like you've got a problem. Just if you don't know, play it safe and have somebody else check for you, or just remove it and delete it. When you're installing software, you know, make sure that when you're doing the software install and you know it's the actual one you want to install, watch for the check boxes on the other softwares that they're going to add to the install. So you click through the first one, you accept the agreement, it starts, you know, accepting the agreement, it goes to the next page, it says, you know, we'll install this. There's a little checkbox next to it. There's another checkbox on the next page. So they're defaulting the checkboxes to install 2 or 3 other applications. So you want to make sure that you uncheck those and it's not something that you necessarily were looking for. Pop-ups, you don't want to be putting personal information in pop-ups, banner ads. It's not a good practice, so be cautious of that. Pay attention to your browser warnings that make, you know, either make sense or concerning. If you don't know the website, don't download from them. You know, you want a legitimate website, a reputable website, referred to you by somebody you trust, etc. And do not enter credentials on unknown websites. That's just a no-no, and you want to be real careful about that. So again, the bad actors are attempting to get you when you're off guard. The technology that you put in play will cover most of your issues, but it's the 10 or 15 or 20% that it's going to be affected by the human, by you not being aware or paying attention. That's what they're attempting to trick you into, is, you know, get you to do something when, you know, you least expect it. So just pay attention. So this next section I want to go into is not commonly, you know, talked about much. So let's, you know, bring some focus to it and give you some insights into these other areas. Because of the home migration, everybody working from home, you might be getting phone calls, for supporting you. Whoops, excuse me. Tech, support scams is very common. They want to help you out. They want to make, they might seem like there's somebody that's legitimate, but be careful. If you didn't ask for it, it's most likely a scam. You're now home. You need to pay attention to your surroundings. You've got a lot of important information now that might be on your desk. You might be, on the first floor. Your windows might be exposed. You might have thin walls. You might have game consoles that are up and running that have two-way audio on them. You want to be a little bit more cognizant of what kind of information you're sharing when you're speaking to your coworkers and you're on meetings. Make sure your space is safe for those conversations. When you have trash, paperwork that you're throwing away at work, you'd probably throw it into a secured shredder box. You want to be cognizant of that. Are you throwing it in the garbage can and whole and not shredding it? That is a source of identity theft or asset theft. So be careful with that. You might now have packages being drop shipped to you from work. So you want to be making sure that your mail is in a safe setup. Do you need to put a camera there? Do you need to know your packages are arriving and make sure you're tracking them and you're getting them away? You're bringing them in as soon as they arrive. You have somebody, if you're away, you have somebody, getting them for you. You just want to be more, aware of that. Another scam that's on the rise is SMX testing. I get 2 or 3 a day now. You don't want to be dealing with those. I just block them, delete them. If you don't know who they are, they're scam. They're getting your numbers from lists that you've signed up for, and there's a lot of scam now with the election. So there's just a lot of texting going on. Same with voicemail, phone scams. So be very, cognizant of, what you're answering and who you're talking to. Never give private information away. A lot of this stuff is common sense, but just want to remind you. As far as your credit report goes, I would make sure that you check it, monitor it, and if you have the ability to lock it down, lock it, and don't open it unless you need to have your credit report looked at by a new creditor or somebody like that. If you're doing a lot of purchasing and a lot of browsing of like a Craigslist, be aware there's a lot of scamming going on Craigslist. Don't give information out if they're asking for information before they see you. Especially if you're like looking at an apartment, they want you to fill an app out before you even visit the place. If you ever visit somebody with Craigslist purchasing, do it in a public place, be safe. Car registrations, important papers in your car, make sure those are locked away. Make sure you don't leave your laptops in your back seat. Make sure your doors are locked, your windows are closed. You don't want anything valuable easily accessible. And refrigerators, you might have a lot of important notes on your refrigerator and you've got the plumber coming in or you've got some vendor coming into your home. Again, you want to make sure your privacy and your important information is not readily available for people to see. So, and then the last thing is if you have moved into a new apartment or you have something new, I would change the locks on those places. And make sure that you're the fresh starter of those new keys. So I'm going to pause again before I go on to the last sections here and see if there's anybody that has any questions or needs to get clarification on anything. Okay, cool. We'll go ahead and move on to the last parts here. So we're doing good on timing. I should be done in a few more minutes. So here's an area that's not technology specific, but I thought it would be important to discuss with you. Now that you're at home, you don't have these benefits in play like you do at the office. So I would make sure that you have an emergency preparedness kit ready for you now that you're spending all that time at home. It's important to do that for earthquakes or some sort of emergency. If there is an emergency or the company needs to get information out to the organization quickly, I would make sure that there's some sort of call tree in play. Where would you, call into if you had to exit your home and the company can make sure you're okay. And then, we don't do fire drills at home like we've done at the company. So I would make sure you have 2 exits to get out of your home office. The other thing to check on is insurance. Make sure that, where does the business insurance end and where does your home insurance start? Make sure that your assets are protected. Companies are signing up for cybersecurity insurance now. You want to understand with your company, what is it that's covered and where do you need to make sure that you're covering assets beyond what can be covered. I would highly recommend that you buy a small safe in the house for all your important papers now. You need to protect that. And I already mentioned the changing of the locks. So for the policies and procedures, I have the links here that you'll get in the email that I sent where you can, inform different agencies and complaints about different things that are going on when it comes to fraudulent activity. You definitely want to report cyber crimes. This goes hand in hand with a corporate cyber incident response process. And you'll get a link to a template that Echo has provided in the past that can help you establish one if it doesn't exist. The main objective is if there is a cyber crime or some sort of breach, that you have everybody's on the same page on how to proceed. It could be a very small phishing campaign or attack to a very large ransomware where the whole company is locked down and locked out of their files, and maybe money has been transferred of large sums. So you want to make sure the company has some protocols in play. You want to make sure that you're protecting your reputation. You want to make sure that your assets are properly addressed in the right manner, and that your clientele, your investors, your partnerships are properly addressed so that you are doing it in a corporate manner without causing additional upsets or inappropriate information being shared. If you are receiving impersonation emails, I would recommend that you inform the person that it was impersonating. If you haven't yet done so for your phone numbers, I would add them to the National Do Not Call list. Again, you'll get a link to this. And like you're attending right now a home security awareness training, I highly recommend that the companies and yourself participate in them at least annually to refresh yourself. It's the complacency, it's letting your guard down, it's not paying attention, it's getting used to it, taking it for granted that the bad actors are hoping will happen in order to attack and cause damage. And again, I will be providing you with a list of everything we just talked about from top down with all the links. You'll get that probably tomorrow in an email for a good clean checklist of everything that's been discussed. The final thing is I just wanted to introduce you to Echo's new programs that we've offered now that a lot of our clients are, actually all our clients are working at home. We wanted to extend our IT service plan to the home assets. The business plans typically end at the business laptop that's been issued, but the home networks are not supported. Any of the home assets like printers or home computers are not supported under those business plans. So we've got a plan now for our clients to extend that service, and you can talk to me more about this with the contact information you'll get provided. And we also offer some of the managed service features that are typically done with business computers, like backup services, antivirus services, VPN services, and then network monitoring services. So that's all an enhancement to the business plans now to the home. And then also we're now doing tech assessments for standard and comprehensive plans. So standard would be like a standard home, an average size home, and a comprehensive would be for a more complex size home. And this will allow for an engineer to assess your home technology and help you or your employer be provided with a kind of a current state of your home technology, and with recommendations to improve it, to better secure it, to provide better performance capabilities, and to provide more reliability. So with that, I wanted to open it up to Q&A, and also just thank you all for attending. I really appreciate the time. And I've got about 5 or 6 or 7 more minutes left, and I would open up to anybody who has any questions. Is there an easy way to check to see what malware protection you have? Well, if you don't know that you have it on your home computer, you most likely don't have it other than the operating systems out of the box setup. So I will add that to our email that you'll get tomorrow to verify, what you're running, if you're running a operating system solution. As far as an app running, typically it would be down in the bottom right where your task manager is on a Windows, and you'll find a little task icon in there, and you hover over it, you'll probably see something that is of a AV nature. But again, you could have, if you work with Echo or you have your IT department, you could ask them to help you out. But I will add a brief check in the email tomorrow. Thank you. Any other questions? Let's see. No other questions there. Appreciate it. Thank you. So you should, if you would like to unmute, you're welcome to talk, or you can just send me a text if there's something you'd like to hear about. Again, there was a lot of information. We covered about 75 different tips and different best practices that you should share with your IT departments, with your your company leadership, to look at a possibly implementing a policy for working at home if it doesn't exist, that would help set some guidelines on minimum requirements for working at home, and then to start to understand what the company will support you with as far as protection goes, and where you need to take care of it yourself at home. Well, I appreciate again your time. I wish you all the best. You stay healthy, you stay safe, and feel free to send me an email tomorrow. When you get that email, I'll be welcome to receive your questions and any comments you'd like to send me. And we will be posting more information about this, and hopefully that'll help you better protect yourself and your company and your family going forward. So early happy holidays to all, and I know that times are difficult these days, but I wish you all the best. Thank you.